This is one of Donald Trump's favorite movies. A heroic president is captured by terrorists aboard Air Force One. But it's also a film of hidden constitutional depths.
I'm told that you want my interpretation as to what the Constitution says about this situation.
Let me explain. It deals with something the Constitution never considered. What happens if the president becomes unable to do their job? Now, this could be because Air Force One was hijacked by terrorists, or it could be something a little less dramatic. What if the president became mentally unstable? This is all hypothetical, of course.
President Donald J. Trump has completed his first periodic physical examination as President of the United States. I found no reason whatsoever to think that the president has any issues whatsoever with this thought process.
But what if a president did have an issue? The answer lies in the U.S. Constitution's 25th Amendment.
The 25th Amendment provides a way in which to remove a president for disability, including both physical and mental health. It wasn't meant to provide a political way of limiting the president's power.
To understand its origins, we need to go back to the 1960s. It was the height of the Cold War. The Cuban Missile Crisis had nearly ended in nuclear Armageddon. President John F. Kennedy's assassination brought something sharply into focus. What would happen if he had survived but wasn't able to function as president? There was nothing in the Constitution. In the past, when President Woodrow Wilson had a major stroke while in office, he was simply shut away by his doctors and hidden from public view. When President James Garfield was shot by an assassin in 1881, he lay on his deathbed for 80 days, hallucinating while the government carried on without him. This make-it-up-as-you-go approach obviously wouldn't work in the age of nuclear standoffs and television news.
Ask not.
Presidents needed to be visibly in charge, and so Congress was forced to act. The final result was the 25th Amendment, passed into law on February 10, 1967. It has 4 sections. The first was already convention. If the president dies or resigns, the vice president becomes the new president. Section 2 deals with the replacement of the vice president. Fans of nerdy political dramas know all about Section 3 of the 25th Amendment,
which permits through written declaration to temporarily transfer all powers of the presidency to the next in the constitutional line of succession.
Section 3 was used by President George W. Bush while he had a routine medical procedure.
Because the president will be under the effects of anesthesia, he once again is elected to implement Section 3 of the 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution.
So for just over 2 hours, the commander-in-chief was the vice president, Dick Cheney. But the big one is Section 4, and it's never been used before, except in fictional shows like 24.
What do you know about Section 4 of the 25th Amendment?
It provides that if the majority of his cabinet feels he's unfit to fulfill his duties, that the president could be removed from office.
That's removed from office involuntarily. We know from insider accounts the people around President Ronald Reagan were having these discussions during his second term. His staff noticed that he seemed inattentive. Sometimes he wouldn't read his papers and only wanted to watch television. But they never took it any further. 6 years after leaving office,
former President Ronald Reagan notified news agencies late today that he has been diagnosed as having Alzheimer's disease.
So what does this all mean for President Donald Trump? Well, if there were ever any serious doubts about the president's sanity, the decision to trigger the 25th Amendment would fall first on the vice president, then on a majority of the members of Trump's cabinet, and then it would require support from 2/3 of both houses in Congress. A pretty high bar. As unlikely as this seems,
25th Amendment. They would bring up the 25th Amendment?
Yes. So 25th Amendment is a concept that is alive every day in the White House.
The White House, of course, has dismissed all of this as pure fantasy. But Michael Wolff isn't the only one raising this. A group of lawmakers, mostly Democrats, were recently briefed on the president's mental state by a psychiatry professor from Yale.
The danger he poses is related to past dangerousness that he has shown in terms of verbal aggression, boasting about sexual assaults, his proneness to paranoid reactions, his loose grip on reality.
But even if the vice president and Trump's cabinet were prepared to act to trigger the 25th Amendment, Trump would still have a possible way out. Presidents can remove any cabinet member for any reason at all, as Trump has already proven.
Major breaking news this morning from the Trump administration. Just moments ago, the president announced that Rex Tillerson is out.
So while it might cause a constitutional crisis, if he feared his cabinet were plotting to remove him, he could take them out first with his favorite catchphrase,
"You're fired."